get in the gutter with these people, but I'm going to answer the question.
How many of you indicted?
Again, the time belongs to
Reclaiming my time.
The time belongs.
I think it's very interesting.
My time.
I think it's very interesting.
And you can
that
reclaim
he
your
talks
time,
about they
reclaiming my time,
indicted.
Mr.
The
Chairman.
president said they
Close the
indicted
clock.
him twice.
Mr. Chairman, please
They
stop the
sure
clock
did.
and stop the
he
clock and
indicted.
restore his time.
Okay, here we go with these
Committee will be in order.
theatrics.
The time
Reclaiming my
belongs to
time
the
and
gentleman
reel
from
back
New
the clock,
York.
please.
We will give you a few more seconds. We will do that. But when
Reclaiming
you ask
my-
a question, the witness
question
gets to
was-
answer. You may not like the answer, but she
Right.
gets to
The
answer.
question was, how many of Epstein's...
They don't like
Que-
the answer,
Reclaiming
Chairman,
my time.
because it's honest.
Reclaiming
So
my-
he asked a
Reclaiming my
4-minute
time.
question.
Restore 45
and
seconds to
I am
Mr. Nadler,
going
please,
to
Mr. Chairman.
My time.
Answer.
You can let her filibuster all day long, but not on our watch.
Reclaiming-
Not on our time. No way.
Reclaiming-
And I told you about that, Attorney General, before you started.
You don't tell me.
Yeah, oh, I
anything,
did tell you because we
washed
saw
up
what you did in the
loser
Senate.
Lawyer, not even a lawyer.
Committee will be in
Reclaiming my
order.
time, and I should get back at least 45 seconds.
We will give you a few more seconds. I
Not a
said that
few more,
already.
just 45 seconds.
Okay, I'm timing right now, Mr. Nadler. Go
All
right
right.
Reclaiming my time. The answer to my question, how many of Epstein's co-conspirators has she indicted, is 0. You have been the Attorney General for a whole year, and your DOJ fired the lead prosecutor of this case, sat on evidence this entire time, and claimed falsely last July that there were no more leads. It took an act of Congress for you to finally release part of the Epstein files, and when you did, you included personal information about the victims while protecting the names of abusers.
Time of the gentleman
None of
has
the perpetrators
expired.
have been brought to justice, but enormous resources
Time
have been
of the
dedicated
gentleman
to
has
pursuing Trump's
expired,
enemies.
and
It's
obviously
clear
there
that
was-
under your leadership, the Department of Justice
There
no
was
longer
no
works for
question
American
in there.
people. It works
Order
for
respond
Donald
to.
Trump. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back.
May I answer?
I think our next questioner, Madam Attorney General, is going to give you time to respond to
Thank you, Chairman.
all kinds of things. So we will turn to the gentleman from Texas for 5 minutes.
Ms. Bondi, you go right ahead. I'm over here. The time is yours.
Thank you. First, he brought up the president saying they indicted me twice. They sure did. They tried to impeach him twice, and you, Mr. Nadler, were one of the leads on the impeachment. I was on the other side. I lived that with you. During impeachment, you said the president conspired, sought foreign interference in the 2016 election. Robert Mueller found no evidence, none, of foreign interference in 2016. Have you apologized to President Trump? Have you apologized to President Trump, all of you who participated in those impeachment hearings against Donald Trump? You all should be apologizing. You sit here and you attack the president, and I am not going to have it. I'm not going to put up with it. You know, all they want to do, the American people need to know this. They are talking about Epstein today. This has been around since the Obama administration. This administration released over 3 million pages of documents, over 3 million, and Donald Trump signed that law to release all of those documents. He is the most transparent president in the nation's history. And none of them asked Merrick Garland over the last 4 years one word about Jeffrey Epstein. How ironic is that? You know why? Because Donald Trump, the Dow right now is over, the Dow is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing. You're a great stock trader, as I hear, Raskin. The Dow is over 50,000 right now. The S&P at almost 7,000. And the NASDAQ smashing records. Americans' 401ks and retirement savings are booming. That's what we should be talking about. We should be talking about making Americans safe. We should be talking about, what does a Dow have to do with anything? That's what they just asked. Are you kidding?
Mr. Jordan, Mr. Jordan.
Committee will be in order.
Mr. Jordan, am I going to get an extra 45 seconds added to my time?
The committee will be in order. The time belongs to the gentleman from Texas. Ms. Bondi, the Attorney General can respond.
Thank you. The Dow has shattered 50,000 for the first time. This is crazy. They said it couldn't be done in 4 years, yet President Trump has done it in 1 year. National median rents have fallen to a 4-year low, thanks to Donald Trump. That's why they want to focus on Epstein and our most transparent president in the nation's history. The murder rate, as I said, has plummeted to a 125-year low, thanks to Donald Trump. For an unprecedented 9 straight months, there were 0 illegal border crossings at the southern border. That's what we should be focused on. All the great work that this president has done and will continue to do to keep America safe and to make Americans safe.
Thank you, Attorney General Bondi. I agree with you totally. I think you've done a fine job. I think that Democrats, in fact, should be apologizing to the Epstein victims for doing nothing during the 4 years that they were running the government. We did not hear about this, and it took you and President Trump to finally provide transparency and give answers to the American people, and I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you also for standing up for truth today and for fighting back against the theatrics and the time waste that you will endure over the next hour or two. I want to apologize on behalf of my colleagues on the left. They're not all that bad, but they've got to put on a show. And I'm sorry that you have to go through that. And I would like to yield the last, I'd say 40, but 40 is 80 seconds. The clock says 40, but I've got 80 seconds since I was so rudely interrupted, and I'll give all 80 seconds to Chairman Jordan.
And I would just yield to the Attorney General if she has anything to add.
I'm fine to continue. Thank you, Chairman.
All right, the chair now recognizes, the gentleman yields back. The chair recognizes the gentlelady from California.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would note that Mr. Nadler's question has not yet been answered, but I want to start by asking that out of respect for the American public and the Epstein survivors, some of whom, of course, are here today, that we can have a transparent conversation and get the public the answers they deserve. I want to briefly direct your attention to 2 documents I'm hoping we will put up on the screen. In the first, an individual emails Jeffrey Epstein asking whether a woman identified as M was pro or civilian, and Epstein responds that she was a civilian, Russian, and fun. In the second email, Epstein writes to Steve Tisch about a Ukrainian girl, noting that she was, quote, a little freaked out by the age difference and stating that he would try to convince her not to return to Ukraine. He then instructs Mr. Tisch to call him, adding, I don't like records of these conversations. So I'd like to ask a straightforward question that really is either a yes or no answer. Do these emails constitute credible evidence, not proof, but credible evidence warning further investigation into whether Steve Tisch was involved in Epstein's criminal conduct? Do you think yes or no?
I'm not going to play a yes-no game with you, but I will answer the question to the best of my ability. As I said, we will look and investigate any case involving any victim. I'm not familiar, there were 3 million pages, of course, with that email, but of course, we will look into anything. The documents have been released, 3 million, the redacted versions, we left them open for all of you to come view. I believe you view them, if not, will you have some copies?
I'd like to.
Could I finish, please? I'm not being rude, please.
I only have 5 minutes.
No, yeah, and I only have 30 seconds based on your filibustering.
You didn't give a yes or no answer,
California.
so let me just go further. Director Patel testified in this committee room that there was no credible information indicating that Epstein trafficked victims to anyone else. And glancing at the documents, that proves that's not the case. In July, your department issued a memo stating that it had conducted an exhaustive review of the Epstein files and concluded that no additional individuals would be charged. So I did go over to the Department of Justice yesterday. I would note that 400 and all our 35 members are in the House, and there's 4 computers. So it would take many months to actually have the time. I only had a few hours. I think the transparency argument is really kind of a sham because it's not really possible.
Whoa. Did you have to wait to get a computer?
It is not possible to really go in. I did, however, see U.S. Attorney information for the Southern District of New York indicating that there were additional survivors and probable co-conspirators. Other members of Congress have uncovered likely co-conspirators whose names were blocked out. Now, the Epstein File Transparency Act, which all but one member of this House voted for and the president signed, requires the department to release everything except that it needs to be redacted to protect the victims or an ongoing prosecution, which apparently there is none from the testimony we have received. I am concerned that this act has not been fully complied with. When Director Patel came to the committee, he admitted that up to 1,000 FBI agents had gone through the files and redacted President Trump's name from them. And it's pretty clear that what has been transmitted from the FBI continues to redact President Trump's name, even though he is mentioned, thousands of times in these files. So I think the credibility of the department in terms of complying with the act has been damaged. And I think the department's credibility has been damaged in other ways. I think we all saw the horrible video of American citizens being killed by ICE agents in Minneapolis. And I think how the department has handled these cases raises a lot of doubt about the department. State and local police in Minnesota got a court order to get access to the crime scene to be sure evidence would be properly preserved by federal agents. But they took the agents defied the court order, and in a departure from general policy, the DOJ is not collaborating with state and local law enforcement on these homicides. So I really think that is a disgraceful approach to the homicides of American citizens, and really does nothing to bring credit to your department. And Mr. Chairman, I would yield back.
Gentlelady yields back.
May I answer?
Attorney General can respond.
I find it interesting that she keeps going after President Trump, the greatest president in American history. And if they could maintain their composure, this isn't a circus, this is a hearing. I find it interesting she keeps going after Donald Trump. She doesn't say how much money she took from Reid Hoffman, did you? None. And nor did
Mr.
she
Chairman,
post
regular
anything.
order, please.
She
Regular
posted
order.
nothing on her X account, on her Twitter account during the Biden years.
Gentlelady.
Yet now, all of a sudden,
question
she's
asked.
going after
Committee will be in
point of
order.
There was
files.
no
Committee will
question
be in
asked of
order.
the Attorney General. She doesn't just get to speak.
Committee will be in order.
I have a point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Committee will be in order.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Gentlelady can state her point of order.
When a witness attacks,
Not a valid point of order. You got to state.
She hasn't completed her point of order
haven't
yet.
got
Please
a
let her
side-
speak, Mr. Chairman. Let's have some regular order here.
Regular order is you got to state the rule. And she
I am
didn't do it.
trying to make a point of order that the witness,
And what rule are you referring to?
without responding to a question, has attacked me personally. I think it's pathetic that she can't answer the questions and
First
instead
time
is
that
attacking
is not even close
members
to a
of the
point of
committee.
order. The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
In August of last year, I sent a letter to the Department of Justice asking for assistance in seeking compensation for the town of Lac du Flambeau. Town of Lac du Flambeau is in my district, and your office replied that it was an ongoing matter and unable to comment on it, which I understand. That's just fine. But I want to set this up just as a reminder. So 3 years ago, it was at this time of year that 4 roads were blockaded in the town of Lac du Flambeau, and the temperature was 25 below zero. People had to park their cars at a neighbor's place, take the snowmobile across the lake to get their car, and then be able to drive into town. There were people 80 and 90 years old that could not, were very concerned that they'd be able to get emergency medical services. And the perpetrators of this, the tribe out there, they demanded compensation from the town. I would call it extortion. They ultimately got $600,000 from the town of Lac du Flambeau. The unfortunate part, Mr. Chairman, is that the Biden administration took the side of the perpetrators who closed those roads off, and the Biden administration made it clear to the town of Lac du Flambeau that we are not on your side in regards to this. Well, fortunately, there was a federal judge that said, no, this is wrong, what happened, and these roads should be left open, they should continue to be left open. My question to you is, are you willing to work with my office and with the town of Lac du Flambeau to further investigate this matter and seek compensation from the tribal government after their extortion of $600,000 from this little town in northern Wisconsin?
Congressman, you do a great job representing your district. And yes, we would more than welcome working with you, and we are familiar with that investigation.
Mr. Chairman, I would just add, we're highlighting these miscarriages of justice in the previous administration. This is just another one of those small examples, no different than the Catholic Diocese in Richmond and many others that you have retold so many times. But here's another instance of what they did to a small town and nearly bankrupted them as a result of it. Fortunately, there was a federal judge that saw through it and has fixed it. I want to move on to fraud enforcement. You've established a National Fraud Enforcement Division, is that correct, Madam Attorney General?
Yes, Congressman.
Has this new division begun any investigations and getting after those individuals that have committed the rampant fraud we've seen, like in Minnesota?
Well, it's not only rampant in Minnesota, it's rampant throughout this country. Much of it is in California, as you know, and other places. Yes, we are working on it actively. Our criminal fraud division has been working on it. We are expanding that. It was the Vice President's idea to come up with this amazing separate fraud division, which we are establishing and going nonstop, not only to expose the fraud in Minnesota, but around the country. It's taxpayer dollars that have been stolen from the American people, and we are committed to recovering that money and holding those people accountable.
Mr. Chairman, I would remind everyone here, why did this happen in Minneapolis? Why did federal law enforcement have to go to Minneapolis? Because of industrial scale fraud. It was an assistant United States attorney that said, this is industrial scale fraud that's going on in Minnesota at this point. I sent a letter to our governor in Wisconsin. We're right across the border there. My district is only 20 miles from the city of Minneapolis. And I asked him to open the books for a federal audit on food stamps and Medicaid. Don't you think it would be a good idea for every governor to do that at this point?
It protects the citizens, and I can't understand why that's not happening. And yes, I do think that's a great idea. It's happening around this country. And when our new division with Colin McDonald is established, it's established when Colin is confirmed. He's amazing. I think you've met with him, you said, Chairman. When that is established, we're going to work on both sides of the aisle. That's what we want to do, to stop fraud in every city, in every state in this country. We will continue to fight for the American people.
So you would encourage every governor across the United States, after what we have seen in Minnesota, what we almost certainly know is happening in other states, you mentioned California, you would agree that every governor should avail themselves of federal resources to make sure that this industrial scale fraud is rooted out to protect the taxpayers of the United States. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Tennessee is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I'd like to thank you for holding this hearing and holding it in a proper fashion as you have. Secondly, I'd like to thank all of the victims of the Epstein case who've come here to attend this hearing, for doing it and for being brave and trying to move this justice forward. I apologize, I can't do it, but the Attorney General not recognizing you, that's embarrassing. I am from Memphis, General Bondi, and Memphis does have the task force there. The Memphis Safe Task Force has been operating in Memphis for several months, and we do have a Democratic Mayor, Paul Young, and he's not against the task force, but he is against ICE being in Memphis, and he's not in favor of the National Guard being in Memphis. And I concur with him on those positions. I think the DEA being there, the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, the FBI, who have been in Memphis in other ways, having more people there is good for Memphis. Crime has gone down in Memphis, but it went down 25% before the task force got there under the direction of Mayor Young and Director Davis, Chief Davis. It's gone down about 15% more since then, and that's good. But I would like to comment that Mexico City's homicide rate has gone down 40% during the same time, when Memphis has only gone down 25%, and that's not necessarily because of the task force, although the mayor says he thinks it's helped. So I thank you for that. You would agree, I presume, that violent crime in communities across our country is critically important, and that's why the task force is there. Is that not true?
Yes, and if I can just add to that, I think the surge, the FBI, our FBI under the leadership of Director Patel, came in and did a surge in Memphis.
Earlier.
Prior to the task force.
Yeah, Viper.
And thank you for saying that about Mayor Young. He's been great to work with, and thank you.
He's a good guy.
He's a very good guy.
One problem I've got with where we are in priorities here. A recent Department of Justice, National Institute of Justice report based on arrest records in Texas and in California found that undocumented immigrants were less than half as likely as U.S.-born Americans to be arrested for homicide. And this pattern holds for assault, sexual assault, robbery, burglary, theft, and arson. Half as likely to be arrested for drug offenses. So I ask you, and I've written to you about this, there are TV ads that run that say to local law enforcement, specifically, says, are you tired of having your hands handcuffed because you can't do the things you wanted to do when you joined? And if you want to do something different, join ICE, and you'll get a $50,000 bonus, and we'll pay off your debts, student debts, and we'll help you with pensions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they're encouraging local law enforcement to leave local law enforcement and go to work for ICE. We need people working in the front lines of local law enforcement to protect our citizens from the worst of the worst. The worst of the worst are not the immigrants. The worst of the worst records show are native-born Americans, and they are committing crimes that hurt our citizens and our cities, and you're working against it, and thank you for that. But by trying to get our local law enforcement, where we have an undercount of officers in Memphis, to leave Memphis and go to work for ICE to deport people is a wrong priority. Why are we trying to get people, policemen who are working on the front lines, to leave the front lines, take the $50,000 and go to work for ICE and instead of working to fight the worst of the worst?
Congressman, I have not yet seen that commercial, that ad. I would argue that we need strong people in both local law enforcement, state law enforcement, and all of our federal agencies working together. I've seen some of the worst violent criminals who were in this country illegally. We both know that. And in Memphis, working hand in hand, I want to stick with Memphis and your mayor and what you discussed, because there have been nearly 6,000 arrests as of February 8th, and I think you agree with this, in your district, and almost 600 gang members. What we found in Memphis, a lot of the gangs are local gangs. But 600 gang members were taken off the streets.
Time, because I've only 40 seconds. I'm going to agree with you.
Yeah.
I thank you for that.
And 148 missing children were recovered by all of us working together, and nearly 1,000 illegal guns were seized as a result of us working together.
And I don't disagree with some of the things you said, but there are questions about those children, but it's a different thing. The fact is, ICE is running rampant, and you are not investigating them. When they killed Mr. Prete, and Miss Good, that was an execution, and you did not investigate it. And you tried to investigate her, Miss Good's widow, and you tried to investigate Mr. Prete. They were executed, like Kristi Noem executed her dog. And that was wrong. And you should investigate those people, and you should investigate anybody that uses a weapon, federal official or not, for civil rights violations. I yield back the balance.
Gentleman yields back his time. Madam Attorney General, anytime you need a break, just let us know. If not, we'll just keep going. The chair is now recognized for 5 minutes. Madam Attorney General, you're not allowed to exercise your constitutional rights in a way that tramples on someone else's, are you?
No.
No, you can't do that. I mean, you have a right to petition the government under the First Amendment. That doesn't mean you can come into this room and start screaming at Mr. Raskin or me or anybody else and disrupt a congressional hearing. You have a right to protest on the street, but that doesn't give you a right to go into the Capitol and disrupt Congress. Something these guys talk about every day. You can't do that. So when Don Lemon said that he was exercising his First Amendment free press rights, freedom of the press rights, that's not really accurate, because he was trampling on other individuals' rights. Is that true?
Chairman, we will always protect our churches and the freedom of religion. And yes, that's accurate.
First right mentioned under the First Amendment,
Right.
freedom of religion, freedom to practice your faith the way you think the good Lord wants you to, right?
That's right, under the federal government.
And isn't it true that Mr. Lemon met at a shopping center with the rioters who entered City's church in St. Paul, met with them prior to marching to the church?
He did meet, and this is a pending case right now, so I will only stick to what is in the four corners of the unsealed indictment, if I could, Chairman.
Yeah, I'm
There's
focused
a
on-
lot more that will come out. But under the four corners of the indictment, yes, he did. They had an operation called Operation Pull-Up. They said they were gearing for a resistance. They met in a parking lot and they caravanned to a church on a Sunday morning when people were worshiping together.
And Mr. Lemon said that he live streamed before entering the church with the rioters. Didn't he say we're going to head to the operation? Didn't he say this he said this on camera, is that right?
Yes, Chairman,
Yeah.
and more.
That he was in Minnesota and that, as you said, they were gearing up for an operation. So you can't do that. This is why this is, I think, so important that this guy be held accountable, and I think why you guys have charged him and indicted him. Moving to the second subject here, will John Brennan be indicted? Mr. Brennan lied to the committee, which you're not supposed to do. Last Congress, when we deposed him, he definitely, 18 U.S.C. 1001, we're all familiar with it. He lied to the committee, and the committee, the Congress, and I think the country would like to know if, in fact, he's going to be indicted for lying. And here's why it's so important. I'll give you a chance to respond. Here's why it's so important. It wasn't just that he lied to us, it's what he lied to us about. He lied to us about when all this weaponization against the President of the United States started. He lied to us about the dossier, and specifically what role the dossier played in the intelligence community assessment. Because we know back when President Trump was first elected, first term, this is when it all started, which led to the Mueller and to the impeachment and to the Jack Smith and all the stuff that's happened in the last decade. But it began here, and he lied to Congress about the role he played. And I just want to read a couple of things he said during that deposition before I give you a chance to respond. Mr. Brennan, when asked a question, said the CIA was not involved at all with the dossier. He said it was their purview, FBI's purview, and not ours. He also said the CIA was very much opposed to having any reference or inclusion of the Steele dossier in the intelligence community assessment. Well, that's interesting because declassified information that was declassified this past summer by the CIA says something entirely different. It says, Brennan, I want to put this one up if we have it. It says, Brennan ultimately formalized his position in writing, stating that, quote, this is released by the CIA Director Ratcliffe, my bottom line is that what I believe that information warrants inclusion in the report. He was further asked by an CIA official. The same officer said when he approached the director and asked that the director refused to remove it after being explained this wasn't good, with the dossier's many flaws, he said, yes, but doesn't it ring true? So this is John Brennan using that document to change intelligence community assessment, which I think led to all the stuff we've seen over the last decade. And I think this committee in the country, Congress in the country, would like to know if Mr. Brennan is going to be indicted.
What I can confirm is that we have received a referral from you, Chairman Jordan, to investigate John Brennan. His attorneys have made some public statements, but the department is still bound, of course, by our longstanding policy of not discussing matters. What I will say today, I can't confirm nor deny whether there is a pending investigation, but what I will say is no one is above the law.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Weaponization has ended.
Yeah.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman from New York is recognized for a point of order.
If we want to know whether Mr. Brennan will be indicted, you should just ask the president.
Not a point of order, but I appreciate you trying to make it one. The gentleman from Georgia is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General Bondi, it's been reported that there were at one point 1,000 personnel assigned to the task of identifying and scrubbing Donald Trump's name from the Epstein files. Were those reports accurate?
I believe his name has appeared countless times in
Okay,
the documents
well, how
that
many
have
people were
been released.
assigned?
If I could finish,
I just
I'm
asked
going to
this-
read you the stats.
I just simply asked whether or not it was true that it was 1,000 folks who were assigned that task. Were those reports accurate?
There are more than 500 attorneys and reviewers. I cannot give you an exact number.
And
Who-
I
I'm
wanted to
trying
ask you,
I'm
I wanted to
answering
ask you
the
about that
question,
also,
sir.
because
Who
this
were
is a different
assisting
question
with
that
this
you're getting to
project?
now. There were 500 DOJ
At
lawyers and others assigned the task of redacting the appropriate information, including identities of the Epstein victim survivors from the Epstein files prior to their release. 500, is that correct?
If I could have finished my answer,
Well,
there were
you
more than
just- I'm
500
just-
attorneys and reviewers who
Okay.
assisted
All right, okay.
with the. They
That
asked the
answers
question and they don't want an answer.
That answers my question, ma'am,
Congressman,
and
let
I'm
me
going to
continue.
move